What if I told you that, at some point in our history, a device capable of generating unlimited, clean, and free energy was about to change the course of humanity, but was silenced before it even reached the world? Imagine an invention so powerful that it could have toppled economic empires, challenged governments, and rewritten the rules of human progress. Why have we never heard of it in science books? Who would have an interest in burying it in oblivion? Today, you will learn the dark story of an invention that promised to free humanity from energy dependence, but disappeared as if it had never existed. It's curious to think that something so grand could be silenced before it even reached the world, isn't it? If this topic has already sparked any feelings or questions in you, share them in the comments. Your perspective helps keep this conversation alive. And if you believe more people need to hear stories like this, leave a like. Each gesture helps this message reach further. To continue following hidden narratives and forgotten mysteries, subscribe to the channel. Your participation is what keeps this investigation moving. Now, let's go back in time and discover the historical context of this mysterious invention. To understand the weight of this history, we need to go back to the late 19th and early 20th centuries, an era marked by discoveries that would shape the future of humanity. It was a time when electricity ceased to be merely a scientific curiosity and became the engine of modernity. Cities began to light up, factories gained new forms of production, and the world seemed to enter an era of limitless progress. But behind this brilliance, there were also intense disputes. Companies, inventors, and governments competed fiercely for control of what would be the greatest wealth of the century: energy. It was in this context that the figure of a visionary inventor emerged. Someone who believed that energy should not be a privilege controlled by a few, but a right accessible to all. He was working on a device that promised something almost inconceivable: to extract energy directly from the environment, continuously, cleanly, and for free. Imagine the impact of this at a time when coal still fueled locomotives and oil was beginning to consolidate itself as the basis of the world economy. Such an invention could have radically changed the course of history. This inventor was no naive dreamer. He was immersed in a context of scientific effervescence, surrounded by names that we now consider giants of science. But, unlike many, his vision was not limited to technical advances. He envisioned a future in which humanity could free itself from dependence on fossil fuels and distribution networks controlled by monopolies. His device, still in the experimental phase, already aroused both enthusiasm and fear. After all, if it worked, it would jeopardize entire fortunes built on the exploitation of traditional energy. Think for a moment. What would it have been like to live in that era, witnessing the birth of inventions that seemed to defy the laws of nature? The telephone, the electric light bulb, the radio, each of these creations seemed magical. And in the midst of this whirlwind, the promise of free energy emerged. Can you imagine the psychological impact of that? For many, it was like touching the impossible. For others, it was a direct threat to the balance of power that sustained industrial empires. The inventor, driven by a mixture of genius and obstinacy, dedicated entire nights to experiments. His laboratories were described as almost mystical places, where sparks cut through the air and coils resonated like artificial thunder. Witnesses reported demonstrations in which lamps lit up without wires, machines functioned without apparent connection to any power source. It was as if he had opened a door to an invisible world, an ocean of energy that had always been around us, but which no one had managed to harness. But like any story that challenges established interests, this one also began to attract suspicious glances. Big businessmen, who had already invested fortunes in building power grids and exploring for oil, saw this invention as an existential threat. Governments, in turn, feared losing control over a strategic resource. After all, if anyone could generate their own energy, how could economic and political order be maintained? And here arises the first inevitable question. Was the world truly prepared for such a profound revolution? Or was this device doomed from the start to be silenced, not by technical failures, but by much greater forces? As we reflect on this, remember, we are only at the beginning of this journey. What comes next is even more disturbing, because it's not just about an invention, but about the impact it could have had on all of humanity. While the historical context already seemed fascinating, the true impact of this invention can only be understood when we consider what it promised to transform. Imagine a world where every house, every isolated village, every community forgotten by large urban centers could generate its own energy, without depending on electrical grids, without paying monthly fees, without being at the mercy of corporations or governments. This was the horizon that opened up before the free energy device. At the turn of the 20th century, electricity was still a luxury. Many regions lived in darkness, while only large cities were beginning to light up. Coal and oil were the pillars of the economy, and whoever controlled these resources controlled the future. Now consider this. What would happen if suddenly anyone could turn on lights, operate machines, or heat their home without spending a penny? The impact would be comparable in scale to what the internet represented at the end of the 20th century. A revolution that not only changed technology, but reconfigured the very structure of society. This device promised more than just energy. It promised freedom. Freedom for small farmers who could irrigate their crops without depending on expensive fuels. Freedom for entire communities that could develop without waiting for power lines. Freedom for inventors and scientists who, with abundant energy, could experiment without limits. And it wasn't just a matter of economics, there was also the environmental impact. While the world was moving towards an ever-increasing dependence on fossil fuels, this invention offered a clean alternative. Without smoke, without pollution, without destruction. Imagine if, at the beginning of the 20th century, we had followed this path. Would we be discussing global warming, energy crises, and wars over oil today? To make this reflection even clearer, let's compare it to current technologies. Today we talk about solar and wind energy as sustainable solutions, but both still depend on infrastructure, high investments, and specific conditions. The free energy device, on the other hand, promised something even more radical. Constant energy, anywhere, anytime. It wouldn't just be an alternative, but a complete break with the energy model we know. Now ask yourself, what would it be like to live in a world where energy is not a scarce resource, but a universal good? What would the global economy be like if there were no energy monopolies? Would we have seen so many wars motivated by oil? Would inequality between rich and poor countries have followed the same course? This invention was not just a machine. It was a threat to the status quo. It promised to redistribute power, wealth, and opportunities in a way that few were willing to accept. And perhaps that is precisely why its history took the turn it did. But before we get to that point, we need to understand, if the promise was so grand, why was it never fulfilled? Who would benefit from the silence surrounding this invention? This is where the narrative begins to take on darker contours. Because, as we will see later, the abandonment of this device was not merely the result of technical difficulties. There were much greater forces at play, forces that were unwilling to allow humanity access to something so transformative. If up to this point the promise seemed too grand to ignore, it is precisely at this point that the narrative begins to turn dark. Because if the free energy device truly had the potential to transform the world, why did it never reach our hands? The answer lies not only in technical difficulties or scientific limitations, but in much deeper forces involving power, money, and control. Initially, the inventor believed his creation would be received as a gift to humanity. But he soon realized he was interfering with enormous interests. Large corporations had already invested fortunes in building power grids, exploring coal and oil, and creating an economic system based on scarcity. After all, if energy became abundant and free, how could profits be maintained? How could tariffs, monopolies, and billion-dollar contracts be justified? It is at this point that reports of veiled pressures emerge. Investors who had previously shown enthusiasm began to distance themselves. Patents were challenged, experiments discredited, and the inventor came to be portrayed as an eccentric, someone who dreamed too big. But was it merely scientific discredit? Or was there a deliberate campaign to silence his voice? Governments also had their reasons to worry. Energy is not just an economic resource, it's an instrument of power. Controlling energy means controlling entire populations, dictating the pace of industry, influencing wars and alliances. If anyone could generate their own energy, how could that control be maintained? How could a world order based on strategic dependencies be sustained? And there was yet another factor: fear. Many scientists of the time believed that manipulating invisible forces could bring unpredictable risks. The unknown always generates apprehension, and the idea of extracting energy from nothing seemed to defy the very laws of physics. Some said it was too dangerous, that it could cause instability or even catastrophes. But wasn't this argument just a convenient smokescreen to justify abandoning the project? The inventor, increasingly isolated, saw his work discredited in public, while in private he faced obstacles that seemed carefully orchestrated. Funding evaporated, laboratories were closed, and documents mysteriously disappeared. What was once celebrated as a promise for the future came to be treated as an unimportant curiosity. But think about it. How many times in history have we seen revolutionary ideas stifled not because they were unfeasible, but because they were dangerous to those in power? How many discoveries have been buried before they even flourished, simply because they threatened established structures? The abandonment of this device was no accident. It was a decision that involved political pressure, economic interests, and perhaps even direct threats. And deep down, there's always the feeling that there was something more behind it all. Something that was never officially revealed, but that left enough traces to fuel theories to this day. And it is precisely at this point that the story delves into an even more intriguing territory. That of conspiracies, rumors, and unconfirmed secrets. Because if the invention was silenced, who exactly pulled the threads of this plot? And why? Get ready, because the next chapter doesn't offer definitive answers, but even more disturbing questions. We'll explore the theories and mysteries surrounding this device, and perhaps you yourself will begin to see connections you never considered before. This is where the story ceases to be merely an account of invention and abandonment, and plunges into a nebulous territory where facts and rumors intertwine. Because if this free energy device truly existed and was silenced, who would have pulled the threads of this plot? And more importantly, why? Some believe the answer lies with the large energy conglomerates of the time. Companies that had already invested billions in electrical infrastructure and oil exploration would have seen the invention as a direct threat to their survival. For these giants, allowing energy to become free would be like signing their own death warrant. Some say that influential executives met in secret to ensure that the invention never reached the public. Others point to governments. Energy is power, and power is not easily distributed. If any citizen could generate their own electricity, how could they maintain control over entire nations? How could they sustain economies based on energy dependence? Some documents from the time suggest that authorities even classified similar research as matters of national security. But security for whom? For the people? Or for those who governed? There is an even more enigmatic layer, the idea that the device was too powerful. Some accounts claim it could access forces we don't yet fully understand, perhaps even invisible dimensions of reality. Some say it was too dangerous. Others believe it threatened entire industries. This phrase echoes in forums, books, and conspiracy theories to this day. And we can't ignore the rumors of sabotage. There are stories of laboratories mysteriously set on fire, of prototypes disappearing without a trace, of patents filed away in secret drawers. Coincidences? Or signs that someone, somewhere was willing to do anything to erase this chapter of history? What's most intriguing is that even after more than a century, the topic continues to resurface. Independent researchers claim to have found clues, fragments of notes, unfinished experiments. Some swear that rudimentary versions of the device still exist, hidden in private collections or confidential archives. Others believe that the technology was secretly appropriated and used in military projects, far from the public eye. And here arises the question that is perhaps the most disturbing of all. Was the device really destroyed? Or just hidden? Could it be that somewhere it still works, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? The mystery surrounding this invention is not merely technical or scientific. It touches on something deeper, the feeling that humanity has been deprived of a different future, perhaps a fairer one, perhaps a freer one. And this feeling is what keeps alive the flame of theories, conspiracies, and unanswered questions. Now, imagine for a moment, what if all of this is true? What if we are living in a world shaped not by what was possible, but by what was allowed? In the next and final chapter, we will ask ourselves, what if that device had been used? What would our present be like if free energy had been made available to everyone? What if, instead of being silenced, the free energy device had been released to the world? This is the question that echoes like an unsettling whisper throughout human history. Imagine a 20th century where energy was not a scarce resource, but abundant. Available in every home, in every community, in every forgotten corner of the planet. What would our present be like if this invention had escaped the shadows? Perhaps we wouldn't have seen so many wars motivated by control of oil. Perhaps there wouldn't be energy crises, nor geopolitical disputes over coal and gas reserves. The world's political map could be completely different, because energy, which has always been used as a currency of power, would have lost its strategic value. Governments could no longer manipulate populations based on scarcity, and corporations would not have built billion-dollar empires on energy dependence. And what about the environment? Think about the impact. Without the rampant burning of fossil fuels, perhaps we wouldn't be on the brink of climate collapse today. Forests could have been preserved, oceans less polluted, the air cleaner. humanity would have followed a more sustainable path from the start, avoiding decades of destruction in the name of progress. But it's not just politics or ecology that would have changed. Daily life itself would be different. Imagine remote villages, which still suffer from a lack of electricity, having access to unlimited energy since the beginning of the last century. Illuminated schools, fully functioning hospitals, technologies advancing at an accelerated pace. The civilizational leap would have been immense. Perhaps we would be, at this very moment, living in a world far more advanced than we have managed to build. And here comes the most unsettling reflection. If this invention truly existed and was silenced, it means we were deprived not only of a technology, but of an entire future. A future in which inequality could have been less, in which science could have flourished without barriers, in which humanity could have freed itself from the invisible chains that keep it imprisoned to this day. But is there still time? Is this technology lost forever, or merely hidden, waiting for the right moment to resurface? And what if someone, somewhere, still holds the secrets of this device? What do you think? Would the world have been more just, freer, more humane, or perhaps too dangerous to handle so much power? This is a question I leave for you to reflect on. What if the free energy device had been used? Could we be living on a completely different planet today? We may never have the definitive answer, but one thing is certain. The silence surrounding this invention continues to echo, serving as a reminder that the story we know may not be the whole truth. And now, it's up to us to keep that flame of curiosity alive, to question what we've been told, and to imagine the futures that have been denied to us. Because, in the end, the greatest mystery isn't what happened to the device, but what could have happened to us. If you've made it this far, you've already realized that this story isn't just about a forgotten invention, but about what our future could have been. And that's precisely why it makes sense to continue this conversation together. If you'd like to join in, leave a comment with the phrase, "I'm with you until the end." That way I know who really walked with me until the very end. Your like is also a simple way to show that this type of content makes sense to you, and it helps keep this exchange we're building here alive. And if you want to continue exploring mysteries, reflections, and stories that almost never appear in books, subscribe to the channel. It's the easiest way to not miss the next dives. Oh, and it doesn't have to stop here. There's a video over there that complements this topic. Click and continue reading. Who knows, maybe the next piece of this puzzle is in the next story.